Hello and a warm welcome to the AI with Arun Show. How is AI saving lives literally every day? How does a tech platform scale a profitable asset light marketplace for human lives across Africa, the UK, and now the massive United States market? And how can tech leaders and enterprise founders learn about building automated, hyperlocal AI routing engines? Our distinguished guest today is Warren Myers, who is the co founder and CEO of Aura, an innovative on demand marketplace and platform transforming global emergency and security response. Warren has successfully engineered Africa's largest private emergency network, connecting thousands of vetted responders via a smart API first clearinghouse. Under his leadership, Aura has expanded into Kenya, the UK, the US, and recently winning the prestigious 2026 ESX Innovation and People's Choice Awards for its groundbreaking remote guarding and intelligent dispatch infrastructure. So, Warren, congratulations on that win and a very warm welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. So, Warren, let's get started. So, first, I would like for you to introduce Aura to our global audience. What does Aura really do?
Well, we're a life-saving platform. We built a marketplace technology platform which enables anyone to access the closest vetted responder to the location anywhere, anytime. And that's been expanded for us to enable dispatching to properties as well for monitored homes and businesses. And really the premise and the vision of our company is that we believe that safety is a basic human requirement. It's a basic human need. It needs to be far more democratized. And where we play is that in every country, there's a gap between what its citizens need and what its government can provide by way of law enforcement and EMS. In some countries, that gap is massive, like in emerging markets. In other countries, the gap is small, but it's growing. And we fill that gap with a licensed network of on-demand responders that enable individuals to access emergency response whenever they need it.
You're wonderful. So you are truly a life-changing company. All right, you guys are saving lives. So Warren, I have a very basic and a fundamental question. Typically, it takes about 18 minutes time while boosting positive incident resolutions by 22%. This is what you guys are doing. All right. If I order a pizza, the pizza comes within very quickly, within 30 minutes and so on. So when you look at traditional public emergency infrastructure, why is it that it takes so much time for emergency responders to respond back, even in a life or death situation?
So look, you can't paint every country with the same brush. Every region has its own challenges. But I think the tailwind behind driving our platform is the fact that every law enforcement agency around the world is getting inundated with just tons and tons of more connected devices, whether that's IoT, wearables, connected alarms, smart homes. And most countries are struggling to ramp up the police resources to cater for that. In fact, most countries, the police supply is going backwards. So that's opening up this gap where police need to start saying, what should we be doing? What should we be prioritizing? And the truth is, in most regions, police should be doing what police should be doing, which is responding to life-threatening emergencies and real verified incidents. And what we do in European and American markets is we've come in and said the police can't do all the triage and false alarms that are coming out of all of these activations. We want to be this layer that enables a vetted responder to go out and vet what's going on, which unleashes the police to go and do what they're really designed to do, which is to deal with real life threatening emergencies and make sure those response times are quick, as opposed to running around doing false alarms everywhere. And that's soaking up all their resources. So we like to see ourselves not in competition to police. In fact, we see us as a very complementary force, which is enabling the police to focus on what they do best, which is high fidelity and high risk situations.
Okay, that makes sense, Warren. So essentially, you're enabling the police department so they can help prioritize what is really life threatening versus something that is maybe false alarms.
If we focus on the UK, a couple of years ago, all their police forces across the country mandated that they'll no longer respond to unverified home alarms. They're not doing it anymore. So all of a sudden, all these alarm companies that are charging subscriptions that weren't able to get like a person who's paying for a home alarm or a business alarm, they need someone to go out there. And in some cases, they're able to verify that there is a live emergency. So if someone breaks into your house and you're there and they phone you and they're like, there's someone downstairs, that goes straight to the police, and it should. But most of the time, 99% of the time, it's an alarm that goes off. There's no one there. They can't get hold of anyone, and someone needs to go out to verify what's going on. And again, most of those are us just checking the property and doing a triage and a verification. But in a small percentage, those are real live incidents And in those cases, the police come out quickly and are effective. So we don't engage. We're not there to arrest anyone or to neutralize anyone. We're there to really triage out all those false alarms and help the police prioritize response to real emergencies.
Understood. Warren, you are a asset light marketplace model aggregating, right? So the dual sided market is extensively, there's two parts of the market, right? On the one side, you're the supply side, which is highly fragmented, and then the demand is extremely unpredictable and high stakes, right? People only call you, there's no planning for emergencies. So it's truly unpredictable. How do you mathematically maintain equilibrium so that a responder is always close enough when a panic button is pressed?
That's a great question. And the answer, there's two answers to it. There's the current state, which is scale. You need to make sure that you have enough responders in a city. And we have a data set that we can say, right, if we need to build a response network in, say, Bogota, as an example, we'd plug in that geography's traffic data, the size, a few other input data, and that would quite tell us how many online vehicles we need to affect a 10-minute response time. We've got the data. We've done this in dozens of cities already. So we already know before we even land there how many vehicles we need. And that does change per day, per night, and on the weekend and holidays. So we've got all of that ready so that when we land and set up in a region, there's no guesswork around how many responders we need online in order to affect a response time. That's the current state, and it works really well. But to take a view into the crystal ball, where we're going is a lot of marketplace platforms like Uber's an obvious example. The reason why they're so quick, they average like a 3-minute effective response time for rides, is because they have demand predictability. They know where rides are going to be. Okay, we don't know when crime is going to happen yet. We're working with partners now that are starting to run huge modeling and AI in order to predict risk and crime. Super exciting. We've been very excited for this to happen because building risk predictability is one of the biggest crime fighting weapons we'll ever have in the world. And just building 10, 20, 30% predictability as a data set will make us twice as quick because we'll be able to reallocate and reposition our resources around that predictability. So I think that this is something that's going to blow up over the next year or two. We're working with a couple of the guys that are running these huge models that are predicting crime, and we see ourselves as a perfect fit partnership there to say, like, okay, you can predict, but when it happens, who goes? That's our API.
No, wonderful, Warren. That seems like a very tough problem to solve, particularly mathematically, given the uncertainties that you are dealing with. And that also makes it very fascinating.
Look, we're not doing the predictability. We help with our data. We have a huge data set as well on where crimes happen and how they happen. And I don't think we'll ever get to the Minority Report, the movie where crime happens before it happens. But I think it's going to get to a point over the next couple of years where it's going to provide incredible insights for us to be more responsive. Like, how do we get in 2 minutes? It becomes very difficult to be a criminal if a responder is 2 minutes away. Arrest rates go through the roof. And that's our job. We want it to be more difficult to be a criminal in this world.
Wonderful. I love the cause and the purpose behind the company.
Just based on this convo, to be clear, in our African markets, we're effectively a 911 platform for individuals as well. And most of our call-outs are ambulance dispatching. So we've platformed and aggregated all the privately run ambulance fleets. Most of our call-outs are to medical emergencies, and we're saving 10 lives a week in Aura at the moment. And that's growing every week, but it's a metric that we're super proud of. Again, in Europe and America, 911 still works really well. That's why in those markets, we focus on property response, security response to alarms. But the phase 2 of those regions are going to be us partnering with the 911 center because they have a certain percentage of the calls that come through. It's just someone breathing or they can't verify what's going on. And in a lot of cases, they don't dispatch an ambulance or a police vehicle there. We want to be the triage layer that they can dispatch us to go and get situational awareness and therefore go, okay, there's someone here that's unresponsive, they're in an ambulance out. Again, like doubling down on like we can really help with the triage. So that's the next phase. But obviously to contract with government and 911 centers, you need a really robust brand and establishment, which I think in the UK we're nearly there. The US is still quite new. But that's our vision in those regions as well.
I love the positioning, Warren. So what essentially you're trying to do is you have two different kinds of positioning, if I understand it. In some parts of the world, you are 911 where people call in and you are the first emergency responders. In other parts of the world, let's say the UK, you're almost there. In the US, you're trying to get there. Where the 911 or the emergency system is pretty mature. You are trying to see if you can do the triaging.
Again, we don't want to replace police. Like in some regions, like where I'm from, you could probably hear from my accent, South Africa, you might as well phone Santa Claus if you phone 911. It's unfortunately really broken. So private response is your only option. And while we started Aura, dialing back from when we founded it, only 5% of the population could access private security or medical response because it was inaccessible and it was expensive. You had to own a home with an alarm system and pay $50 a month, and medical was very much linked to your health insurance, and only a small percentage of the population could afford that. And we said, well, there's all these 95% of the population can't get help from public or private, but at the same time, all the private fleets were doing nothing 90% of the time. So you had all this demand and you had all the supply that just weren't finding each other. We've connected those together in a shared value concept where millions more people can access these necessary services, and the response companies are making more money on their fixed cost structures. So it's a frictionless marketplace where everyone's winning.
Wonderful. So let's talk about that a little bit. So the essentially model that you have is, instead of consumers getting into a standalone or an app, what you are doing is you're an API first strategy. You're embedding your technology into all the platform like Uber, the Discovery 911, and so on and so forth. Right. So you have therefore become a utility company. So explain to our viewers, how did this strategy of being an invisible infrastructure safety layer inside other enterprise apps work compared to you being a standalone app?
Yes. So look, we B2B. So we decided early on that where we wanted to focus our time, energy, and capital is on the back end response layer. We saw something that we could really get to market first on and really put a moat up, pull the ladder up. And in all of our established regions, we've created a really strong monopolized supply network, which really helps our model. And set to ourselves B2C, going direct to consumer, especially initially when you don't have a brand, you have very high cost per acquisition on direct to consumer verticals. Let's rather work with big companies that have huge subscription bases already, have trust, insurance companies, telematics companies. We work through large banks, even telcos are some of our biggest distributors. They can add to bill or add this to an existing subscription. They make extra money, and their customers get this at a huge discount because it's like subsidized based on the volume, because there's huge volume. We're covering over 2.5 million people in South Africa have access to this. So it comes with its fair share of pros and cons. We don't own a whole concept to consumer narrative, which is a challenge. We don't tell our story directly to end users. We're always working through these very big companies, which are quite slow in a lot of cases to work through. So the sales cycles are a challenge. So there's give and take, but overall, I think it was the right way to go. I would do it again. And it's the same in the UK and the US. We work through alarm companies. So all your alarm brands that you subscribe to, we work through them where they add on a guard response service, specifically in the cities where the police are not responding to unverified alarm activations.
That's awesome. So Warren, let's dig under the hood. Let's talk about the real-time routing engine that you guys have. So when an emergency alert is triggered, let's say I'm in an emergency situation, I trigger the emergency alarm on my app, right? And your intelligent dispatch platform, it must match my coordinates to the closest responder in seconds, all right? So beyond the GPS proximity, what are the other live operating parameters that you're using, such as traffic conditions, responder qualification levels, and maybe other things, historical data, to figure out that my routing engine is getting me in the right place?
So we call it eligibility. Like, how do we rank eligibility for a specific panic? The first split is the security or medical. So there's two separate APIs. They're going to ring separate networks. Then what we do is we ring fence an ETA around that panic location. We don't dispatch vehicles to, or even offer a call out to someone that's more than 10 minutes away, according to the Google Maps API. And we've made sure that there's such density in our network that on average we're offering it to 6 companies, 6 cars in that range. That's our average. Sometimes it's more, sometimes in more rural areas it's 2, but we always get someone out. Okay, and the way that it ranks is really the main input is ETA. Our algorithm is first offering this to the closest vehicle, that ETA. Eventually it goes to the second closest, then the third, until there's a match. And then once there's a match, that responder is given that response and is navigated to that customer's location. There are other eligibility metrics that we use, which are responder ratings. So we rate our responders, how good they are, how well they've previously responded. And that plays a role in the algorithm, how we match a specific responder to a situation. But because the key metric in our business is response times, which leads to the ultimate KPI, which is lives saved, we always try to get the closest person there. That's really the main weighting in our algorithm, is based on ETA.
Got it. No, that sounds very interesting, the way you articulated it, right? talking about the eligibility and how your APIs work and trying to figure out based on including the responder ratings. That's fantastic. So, Warren, let's talk about ambient computing. So, as we move into this era of ambient computing, the trigger for an emergency is could be moving away from, let's say, a manual phone taps towards wearables, towards home sensors or connected automobile systems. So, how are you architecting your systems in order to account for all of these kinds of IoT devices or non-phone devices?
Great question. I firmly believe that the future of human emergency management is going to be biometric, or other cohorts, which I call autonomous triggers, which is crash detection. A fall down is already a very well-known used one, and that's within the Apple ecosystem. And I love the idea of getting someone help who's not able to phone, because generally, if you're able to phone, you're not critical. Someone that's really critical, where they're having an airway, breathing, or circulatory compromise, typically can't phone or even get to an app. So our API is designed in such a way that we can receive a payload from any IoT, a wearable, any OEM. Really, we need a location and a subscription code to activate that response. And what we've started building is the ability. We've got partners in about 62 countries, control room center partners, licensed control room, who are able to dispatch police and ambulance in that region. Pretty much all the countries, all over Europe, all the Americas, most of Africa, most of Asia and Australia. We've got 52 partners. In some regions we have more, like in India, there's different dialects, so we need a few more partners so that we can provide an OEM, let's just call it Whoop or one of the wearable OEMs, one single integration that handles global SOS clearing. And we handle not just the physical dispatching of the operational dispatching, but also the local compliance and licensing and liability, which is a big play there. So we're building for this. I think that is where the world is heading. Is if you're able to phone, that's great, but there are tons of people that are dying at the moment where their wearable knows and it's not going anywhere. It's not being sent out, which is crazy if you think about it. If that data, that panic is there, it's just not being routed properly. And it's because no one's really built a global clearing platform for this. I think we're one of the first folks to be doing this. And also all the complicated regulatory and licensing and liability issues in each one of these OEMs are not designed to do that. They build wearables and apps. They don't know how to handle dispatching across dozens of countries. So that's part of our year 1 and year 2 playbook from here, is really to be the standard global integration partner to clear panics into nearly every region in the world.
No, wonderful, Warren. So I just want to take a moment for my audience. If you are in a business where you require properties or anything else, that you require services which is able to save people's lives, here is a great solution that actually helps do that. And as Warren mentioned, they are present in multiple countries through multiple partners. And more importantly, they are future proof. Meaning, if your consumers are actually wearing wearables, they don't have the ability to make a phone call. So this solution has the ability to even route situations just by understanding what the people are thinking and how they are feeling. So there's a lot of future-proof technology that is actually already built in, even without a device or a phone.
I'll caveat that there are some challenges. Wearables are not always real time. A lot of the time, I'm wearing an Oura Ring now, right? So I'll open my app and I'll get all my data, my biometric data, but this isn't live hitting the cloud all the time. And that's because they're trying to make the battery last forever. So the prerequisite to this really working, and I think this a year or two away, is where battery life and efficiency and connectivity get to a point where these things can always be on. Because if I have an aneurysm now or a heart attack, this needs to always be on, right? So there's still, we're playing into a world that's busy getting built, but I can't see a world in 5 years' time where wearable isn't the main primary way in which someone's life-threatening signal gets sent out to the world to get them help.
Wonderful. So let's move on to the next segment of our show, which is about the global clearinghouse, right? And your playbook for scale, because clearly you have scaled a lot, starting from Africa to multiple countries in Europe and now the US and Asia Pacific, right? So first of all, explain to our viewers, what is a clearinghouse? Right?
Well, ready to jump to this point. Well, if you're a platform that has customers or staff all over the world, all right, there's no real routing system to take one integration and get dispatch in the Philippines, Japan, Europe. At the moment, all these apps and wearables companies if they want to do this, their safety teams have to find local partners in every region that are on different systems. There's no one single source of truth. So what we've built is a single integration with one data backend where you pipe all of your panics through to us. We'll triage them, and if required, we'll pipe that through to the local 24/7 monitoring center partner that's using our technology that is going to get you help. And that clears tons of complexity. In fact, most companies haven't done this yet because it's too complicated to do. If you're a wearable or if you're an app that has an SOS feature in it, that's not your core business. We want to simplify that for them and to say that if safety is a key part of your value proposition, we can enable that for you globally. And look, in some regions, you need private. In some regions, the public servers are excellent. Like you don't need public services private in most of Europe and Singapore and places like that. The public services are excellent. The private only comes in countries where we know that there's a big constraint on public resources. And again, that's all coming into one platform where you're getting a global view through one data dash on exactly what's going on with the service globally, as opposed to very fragmented providers who are servicing you in different regions with different systems.
That makes sense. Warren, thank you for explaining that to our viewers. Now let's talk about scale and particularly the US market. All right. The US market, as you're aware, is highly litigation oriented. Right? It is deeply entrenched with legacy players. So how does the value proposition change when you're pitching to, let's say, a US commercial monitoring center versus an emerging market ecosystem where public infrastructure is strained?
Well, look, in the US specifically, and we're actually happy about this, there's only about 50 cities at the moment where there's a massive police constraint to alarms. If it was everywhere, I would have had to build a guard network across that whole country. It would have cost us $50 million, right? Luckily, at this stage, it's still new. Police are starting to deprioritize alarms. It's the first thing that they're deprioritizing in order to open up their resources to do real critical response. And we're seeing that grow. Like we've been there for a year. It's doubled. The amount of cities that have this problem have doubled. So it went from 20 now to like 50. We think it's going to double every 6 months now, especially when the police know that there's a viable solution to help with the triage. I think everyone knows, citizens and police, that police shouldn't, they can't, and they shouldn't be doing triage work. It's just a waste of their resources, and it makes them less responsive to very high fidelity and high risk situations. So the way that we approach it is really based on where there's a need. In the emerging markets, like I said, we're effectively the national private 911 service. We need national coverage everywhere where people are. And that's difficult to set up. Luckily, in the US, our teams are hyper-focused on the cities and the growing amount of cities. We're growing, like every week we have a team, someone going out to Milwaukee or to Detroit or new cities setting up guard networks based on where the police response is moving away from doing all the triage. I hope that answers your question.
It does. And particularly if anybody is working for the city or the local counties or the state, this is a helpful understanding for them to figure out where is it that they could be using the traditional 911 or the police services, and where is it that they should be talking to you or trying to get your services in. No, wonderful. So let's talk about the mission that you have, Warren. So your mission emphasizes making security accessible for all of you, all right, with integration allowing access for maybe a small monthly fee. So how do you balance this aggressive unit economics? Because you're talking to investors, you have to talk about the money and how you're getting revenue from, versus running a very ethical mandate of a tech company that you're trying to save human lives. So these seem to be contradictory in some form or shape. So how do you balance these two?
Well, luckily they aren't. We've managed to find economics that work at scale. That's why most of our customers, we wouldn't work with a partner that has 100 users or 100 sites. It's always scale based. We're able to bring our subscriptions down nominally to like very affordable rates, which are almost like democratized. And we know now, based on the law of big numbers and the scale we're at, how to price in the usage. And that's similar to an insurance model. You pay your monthly fee. They know on average, based on the base, how much usage there's going to be, and that's priced in. We do the same. And so we're able to provide like very affordable subscriptions and include the required responses to that base and still make a very healthy margin on that.
So for my viewers, if you're in a country where Warren's product is available or is available for a subscription, this is a really good subscription and a truly life-saving subscription to have for you and for your families.
You just brought our family. One of the latest features that we've built is we have a white label product which we repaint and strip out for partner distribution. And before it was really just for them to panic in an emergency. Now they have the ability to track where their family is, as well as dispatch to their family. So if I can't get hold of my father and I'm worried about him, or my child or my wife, you go into the app, you hit their face, because you can see where they are, and you dispatch to them. So it actually gives you the power to protect your family when you're not with them. which is like I'm a father, which is like the most important thing in my life. Like I feel maybe I can protect my family when I'm with them, but you can't always be with your family. So we've expanded this to say it's not just about you. Actually, we now want to help you protect your family, which is everyone's main priority in the world.
That's beautiful. That's one of the biggest takeaways from the conversation today, Warren.
No, it's a very, and also what it does is it increases daily usage. When you can track your family and see where they are, it makes people come back and use the app a lot more, because if it's purely panic, you're waiting a year or two until they have an emergency, and it's not really front of mind in a lot of cases. So this feature's really unlocked huge scale for us, enabling like that full family protect value proposition, and also driving up daily usage, so that when an emergency happens, that fight or flight reaction is it. I've got that app. I use it every day. Bang, I panic.
Beautiful. All right. So, Warren, with that, we are moving on to the last segment of our show, which is the rapid fire round.
I'll
So,
try
here's
to-
the first question to you. What is the single most common reason automated dispatch systems fail in production?
It's not technical. It's having enough supply, right? The only reason why a response would fail in our world is if there isn't a responder in range. So our first priority when we set up a market is to oversupply our market. We spend tons of capital, not just onboarding and putting the tech into these vehicles, but it's even paying retainers. Because we're saying to these responders, we haven't even got customers yet. We're just building this network. But in order to create trust initially and to make them feel like they're getting value out of this, we pay them every month, whether we're using them or not. And then the customers come in and then they're bought in. So the real way of setting this up, like the way that you really rub the sticks together to make a fire, is to focus on getting the right amount of responders online and available. The tech will always match them.
Right? No, good to know that the tech is not a problem and the tech works that it's supposed to. The second question I'm asking is on behalf of a lot of founders who want to scale globally. And the reason I ask this question is because you have been very successful in scaling globally. So when you're trying to scale globally, what is harder to solve? Is it fragmented technical infrastructure, or is it the local regulatory compliance?
Our tech has been incredibly scalable. It runs off global mapping systems, so it's anyone can panic anywhere in the world. So scaling the tech has for us been, nothing's easy. Like everything in startup is like chewing glass. But I definitely favor to your latter point. Every country has got very different regulatory mandates that link to different liability risks. In a lot of cases, what we're doing isn't even legislative because it's so new. So you're playing in a gray area there. So mapping that out and ensuring cover around those pieces it's super fragmented. But look, once it's done, it's done. I feel like we're like over the hump. We really understand globally what each region's layout is, their licensing requirements, their regulatory requirements with regard to accessing and dispatching priority, police and ambulance. But that's been a huge work in the making. And we'll keep polishing it up, but definitely the latter.
Wonderful. The next one we have, and we talked about it earlier, but with the ultimate trigger for personal safety always on a smartphone, will it completely shift to ambient AI, IoT, wearables in the next 5 years?
So, like I mentioned, I think biometric triggers and more autonomous triggers like crash detection and fall down are the future, but don't discount agents. I think that in a couple of years, the way that our handset the way that we engage with the internet is going to be driven by an agent. And I think that your agent will know in a lot of cases when you are unsafe or when you're having an emergency. And you want to enable that agent to hit an API. So I think it's going to be a split between the disruption of a phone call and an app is going to be wearable as well as AI agents.
Understood. The next one, what is the most critical metric that you look at on your CEO dashboard every morning?
Live saved and safe spaces created, because we respond to properties as well. That's our whole business has got a whole strategy doc, which has initiatives that boil up to those two metrics, which is live saved and safe spaces created. Everything, even revenue and response times, that all point up to those two metrics.
Warren, I love that answer and the speed at which you had the answer, because a lot of time founders lose the purpose. And the core purpose of your company is to save lives. And that's exactly the one single metric you're looking at. And this is a very important lesson for any founder, to not forget the purpose, the core purpose. Everything else will happen, but the core purpose has to stay.
And I can tell you along the way, there's a lot of distractions that pull you in there and you think, oh, there's revenue down that road and this sounds super interesting. It's just from a focus point of view, but even how you build a team around a vision, right? Like we've got the most incredible team executing on this vision. It's because it's so simple. It's not simple to execute. Like the operational pieces and the technical pieces are difficult, but the why is so simple. Every week, everyone in our company gets a report based on how many lives we've saved, and they're all equally contributed to make that happen, which gives people I believe a company needs to give their employees a sense of purpose and to feel like they're contributing their time to a a cause that makes the world a better place. That's almost, it comes alongside compensation and growth, and that the company needs to be giving people that. And that's why we have such a strong team.
Beautiful. Love it. And then the last one I have for you, Warren, is that if you could give one piece of advice to a founder who is building an enterprise marketplace similar to yours that handles real world physical operations, what would it be?
MVP, there's a lot of learning in this. Supply and demand is, like I said, rubbing sticks together. You need supply first, then you need demand. You need to marry those together in a way where it's a shared value concept, where everybody's winning. And it's much easier to do on a small scale as opposed to a large scale. So try and hyper focus it either geographically or demographically to something that's executable, where you can get runs on the board, where you can learn, cut your teeth on something much more manageable and easier to execute on, as opposed to trying to do something nationally or globally initially. It's like trying to boil the ocean. Start small, get some runs on the board, make sure that the value proposition is very clear from both supply and demand, and scale from there.
Awesome. That sounds great. Warren, thank you so much. That was the last one that we had. I truly appreciate it. And you are doing a fantastic job, plus also a very noble cause.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.